Second session, the Honorable Russell Healy presiding. You may be seated.
All right, ready to resume?
Yes, sir.
And just, we took a little longer than, yeah, Mr. Dunn, come on around and have a seat. Took a little longer than scheduled because the jurors' lunches had already been delivered and they needed to eat. So they have now gotten that accomplished, so we're finished with the lunch break and we'll have the rest of the afternoon. Mr. Stroller, you ready to proceed?
I am, yes, sir.
Okay, Mr. Guy already said so, I just hadn't asked you yet.
Sorry, Judge.
All right, bring the jurors on in.
Jurors in there in the courtroom.
All right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You all have a seat. Thank you for your patience this morning and for your indulgence on the lunch situation. I'm sorry about the little snafu on one of the jurors' lunches. There sure are a lot of moving parts to this thing, so I'll try and get to the bottom of that and make sure we don't have that occasion again. So we're ready to resume. Mr. Guy, go right ahead.
Thank you, Judge. I think where we left off, it was somewhere in the middle of the night, and you were still very upset about what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but you didn't call the police to alleviate your concerns about the people who might be driving around, right?
We didn't contact law enforcement until the next morning.
Can I have that screen up? I believe you said that the window on the driver's side in the back was open.
I thought it was. I saw light come through.
Does that refresh your recollection? States 21?
Well, I see the windows up now. At the time, I'm thinking that it was down, but
Okay,
it was just based on light coming through.
but you're not saying it was down, right?
I wasn't on that side of the car, so I couldn't say for sure.
All right, but you did say that earlier today. You said
I realized what I said, but it was based on ambient light coming through.
And you said that you don't use the phrase thug music, do you?
It doesn't seem to be a familiar term. If I was going to refer to it, I'd call it rap crap.
At 1 o'clock, you were flipping on your phone there, and you saw that someone had been killed?
Yes, I was actively seeking news.
Right. And when you got the news that someone you had shot was dead, you didn't call the police?
No, I went to the bathroom and threw up.
Objection has been answered, Your Honor.
Overruled.
You did not call the police.
And I went to the
Now it's
bathroom
asked
and
and
threw up.
answered, Mr. Guy.
And you've been emotional today, right?
Yeah, for certain topics.
Did you cry when the news came on that a young boy had been killed?
I don't recall. I know I was very upset.
You took a shower?
That was at 7 in the morning.
And then you left town.
We went back home to Sanctuary to contact law enforcement. Safe Harbor, I should say.
Okay, Duval wasn't this a safe harbor?
Again, if you asked me how I would react to a situation like this, I never would have guessed
Okay, that's not
how
what I
we
asked.
did or what we did. So when you're questioning me whether I contacted Duval, it makes sense that I should have. We didn't. I couldn't tell you why.
Are the police different in Satellite Beach than they are in Duval County?
Well, I had a neighbor in federal law enforcement that was personally known to me. So in that respect, yes.
Okay, but he's not a police officer, right?
It's federal law enforcement.
Okay, he doesn't work in Jacksonville, does he?
No,
So he wouldn't have been handling your shooting, right?
correct. I really wasn't worried about the law, sir. Self-defense, you can't change it into murder. So whether I waited 10 hours or 10 days, it didn't matter. I had other concerns at the time, and that was surrounding my fiance.
it didn't matter to,
It didn't matter in the present mind that I was in.
it mattered to you? Or who did it matter to?
It didn't matter to me in the state of mind I was in.
You had killed a 17-year-old boy and that didn't matter to you?
In self-defense, and whether I called the police that night or the next morning didn't seem, it wasn't going to change it from self-defense to anything else.
You were concerned about Charlie? Getting
I was
Charlie back?
concerned about Rhonda.
Didn't you tell the sheriff's office that you wanted to get Rhonda and the dog back before the shitstorm came down?
Sure. You
couldn't have called one of your family members to take your dog?
I'm sure we could have done a lot of things, but again, we didn't, and it kind of describes the state of mind we were in.
Okay, well, I'm not asking about we. I'm asking about you.
Well, it was both of us.
Okay, but I'm asking about your decisions, not anybody else's.
Okay.
So, any of those people in that family picture we saw there this week, you couldn't call those people to take care of the
I
dog?
could have called any number of them, but I did not.
All right. And Rhonda Rauer is an adult, right?
Yes, she is.
She could take care of herself, right?
Sure.
You said earlier that you never, or that you did tell Rhonda Rauer that there was a gun, that they had a gun. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember writing Rhonda Rauer a letter?
I wrote
About the
Rhonda
events?
several letters.
Okay, do you remember one on Wednesday, December 5th of 2012?
I do not.
Would it refresh your memory to see it?
Sure.
Judge, if I could hand the witness what's been marked for identification as 8U.
Yes, sir.
Judge, if they have a copy,
Sorry?
I don't know what they're handing, if they have a copy.
Oh, for you? Okay.
Well, I don't have an additional copy, I'm just gonna look at that one.
That was the one you showed?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay.
Sir, would you read that first paragraph to yourself and see if that refreshes your recollection about whether or not you told Rhonda Rauer there was a gun?
I wrote here that I cannot recall if I ever conveyed the details of my decision making to you.
Is that your letter?
Yes.
Okay, it hadn't been altered, has it?
I wouldn't know. I don't have a original.
Okay, you wrote it, right?
It appears to me.
Okay. Fair and accurate copy?
Sure.
Judge, can I move this in? It states, I think we're 202.
I think it is 202. Mr. Stroller?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'll be received as State's Exhibit 202.
Thank you. Hand that back to you. You now got 202 in front of you. Ask you to turn your attention to the front page. Did you not write, in passing, he mentioned in passing that I had made no mention of a gun to you.
Right, so what's your point? Is that what it says?
Is that not what it says?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you didn't tell Rhonda Rauer about a gun.
That's not what this says. This says somebody else told me that she said she didn't remember me mentioning the gun. That's a lot different from me not mentioning a gun to her.
Okay, so you're going to stick with the fact that you didn't, that you told her about a gun.
Pardon?
You're going to stick with your account that you told her about a gun multiple times.
Yes.
Okay. And to be sure, you were not injured that night, right?
Correct.
Your car was not damaged?
Not to my knowledge.
You pulled the trigger 10 times, right?
Yes, sir.
each time you pull the trigger, I mean, it's a 6 1/4 pound of trigger pull, right?
That's what I heard testified,
Okay, does that
yes.
sound right?
I don't know what it would be.
Well, you've had that gun at that point for 22 years.
Sure, but I had never had the trigger pull measured.
All right, but it's not a hair trigger, right?
Correct.
To expel one bullet, you've got to pull the trigger one time.
That should give you an idea how much of a panic I was in that I was able to pull it 10 times without knowing how many times I pulled it.
Are you saying you did it by reflex then?
No, I did it in sheer panic and fear for my life.
While you were aiming directly into the door of a car that was moving?
I was aiming it into a door that was stationary, and the car moved in front of me, and I didn't even realize it was moving.
Well, how about when the car drove away and you took that stance and hit it 3 times?
Right, again, that wasn't just fear for my life, that was fear for my life and
But
Rhonda's
that
at
was a
that point.
panic then? I mean, when you were aiming, that was just a lucky shot that you hit it 3 times?
I pointed, I didn't aim, I didn't use the sight, it was, yes, it was panic.
Well, you'd have to admit then that you're pretty lucky then, right? I mean, because gosh, you're not even aiming at a moving car and you hit it 3 times.
I wouldn't call it luck.
What would you call
It wasn't that far away. I don't know what to tell you, but you know, like how a pistol has sights on it, I wasn't using sights.
it? Each time you pull the trigger, it's a conscious decision to fire, right?
In the situation I was in, I consciously pulled the trigger once. Everything after that was just a panic.
So you weren't conscious when you were pulling the trigger the other times?
Well, I wasn't like at a target range where you would pull the trigger once every second and you're paying attention to where you're aiming and all that. That wasn't the case here. This was a panic moment where, you know, as I testified, I had a young man threatening to kill me multiple times, getting out of the car saying it was going down now, and getting out with a weapon. So I was in sheer terror.
So when you got out of the car
I was still in sheer terror.
and repositioned yourself and took aim at the car again, that wasn't a conscious decision to fire?
Yes, it was. And when I pointed at the car, yes.
Each of those last 3 times?
Right, and as I recall, it was like to shoot once, but obviously I did shoot 3 times. So you can imagine the but you know, however,
Mr. Dunn, you've said several times throughout the course of the day that you didn't call the police until the next morning. Are you talking about the morning of the 24th?
yes, sir.
Who was it that you called? Can you tell me the name of the officer?
I don't remember his name, but he was here yesterday. And I didn't call him personally. He was called on my behalf.
Okay, and is it your testimony that you called Ken Lescalet?
Yes.
Wasn't that the law enforcement officer you were talking about?
Well, at 8:30 in the morning, I called him, and then I went and spoke with him and asked him to contact law enforcement on my behalf.
Your phone number at the time was 772-201-1362.
Correct. And it's the 202 phone number that I called at 8:30.
Right. 202-365-8150.
Yeah, it's a Washington, D.C. number.
Okay, would it refresh your recollection to explain who called who, whether or not you called him
Your
or
Honor,
if he called you?
Judge, if I can object, improper predicate, can we approach?
Sure. All right, the objection's overruled. Mr. Guy?
Mr. Lescalet is with the Department of Agriculture.
Yes,
That's what you meant by federal law enforcement.
he is. He's got a shield and everything. He's 001.
Can I refresh your recollection with your phone records as to whether who called who?
You may.
Judge, if I can approach the witness.
Yes, sir.
I want you to look at the call. First of all, does those appear to be your phone records?
Yes, that's my phone number.
Okay. You see the call highlighted at 8:30?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see the last column on the right where it says calling party?
Right?
Okay, that's Mr. Lescalet's number, right?
Right? That's where he called me, I guess.
Right, so you didn't call him.
Well, what's the 904 number?
I just asked you about the number on the right, the calling party. Does that refresh your memory as to who called who?
Oh, calling party, gotcha. Yes, sir.
So it was Mr. Lescalet who called you at 8:30 on the morning of the 24th.
Apparently so.
And you did not talk about a fact that you didn't mention to him that you had a problem in Jacksonville that you needed to talk to him about.
I spoke to him at 8:30 in the morning. My apologies. I thought I called him, but I spoke to him to inquire whether or not he was going to be at home because I had an important matter to speak with him. And I did not get into detail about what it was about or where it happened.
Isn't it true that he called you to see if you and Rhonda Rower could go out that night?
I think it was something in the afternoon.
And you told him that the answer was no, Rhonda Rower wasn't feeling well.
I don't recall that aspect of the conversation.
You never said anything to Mr. Lescalet about wanting to talk to him about something.
Yes, I did. I asked if he was going to be home, and I had something important to talk to him about.
Judge, that's all I have. Thank you.
Judge, can I just have one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Very briefly, Mr. Dunn, are you a custodian of records for that call log?
No, I'm not.
Did it appear there were other phone numbers that Mr. Guy was showing you that isn't your number?
Yes.
Okay. Is it possible the calling party is the party that you actually called?
Can I object to that as call for speculation?
Sustain.
Again, do you know how to read that call log?
No.
Okay. Do you work for the phone company?
No.
Do you even have a 904 number?
No.
Is there a 904 number on that where Mr. Guy refreshed your recollection?
Yes, there was.
Do you even know where that number came from?
No.
Can you look at the top of the page and tell me what it says over that 904?
I don't have it anymore.
Mr. Guy. Judge, if I can approach Mr. Dunn.
Yes, sir.
Can you look at that 904 and tell me what it says at the top of that page?
Dial digit?
Did you dial a 904 number?
Not at 8:30 in the morning.
Right. Did you have a 904 cell phone?
No, not at the time.
Do you have any knowledge of why this record was created with the words on it and says calling anything? Do you have any knowledge of how this was created or why?
No.
Do you know who created it?
No.
Judge, again, if I could just have a brief moment, I apologize.
Sure. Mr. Guy, I think your mic is still on.
Thank you, Judge.
You're welcome.
Now, Mr. Dunn, when Mr. Guy talks about that common area, and he kept saying common area in your hotel, do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Could you explain to the jury where that common area is in the hotel?
It's on the top floor right as you exit the elevators. It's like the entrance to the hallway has a couch and seating area
Where was your room located?
right down the hall.
And is that on a secure floor where you can't get to without having a pass key to get in?
Yes, it was.
Do you recall Mr. Guy saying that Rhonda's a grown woman and can take care of herself?
I remember.
Was she in a condition that night to take care of herself?
Not at all.
Was she in a condition the next day to take care of herself?
Not at all.
Was she in a condition worse off than we saw her testify the other day?
Very much so.
Now, Mr. Guy also said, again, that you were trying to be stoic for Rhonda. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Okay. Were you as calm as you are today?
No.
Were you calm as are you sitting at the table next to me?
No.
Were you as calm as when you were sitting at your son's wedding table?
No.
Were you as calm? Let me rephrase that. What was your mental state that day? The next morning?
I was, it was like an out-of-body experience, trying to, process what happened. We were upset when it was just a shooting, and now that we found out there was a fatality, we were just crazy with grief.
Let me ask you this. When you testified earlier too, when you found out you went in the bathroom and threw up, is that correct?
Yes?
Did you have any type of stomach issues and diarrhea, anything like that?
Yes, I did.
And was that through the evening all the way through 5 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, it was.
Is that part of the reasons why when you did get up, you needed to shower?
Yes, it was.
Mr. Guy also talked about this 3-page letter that you wrote.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Could you please tell the jury why you wrote that letter?
I wanted to reassure Rhonda. I mean, if she was questioning things, I wanted to set her mind at ease.
Okay. And you also remember writing the letter that was dictated where your brother typed it out, and Mr. Guy questioned you on that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What was the purpose of sending that letter out to your family?
That was so they would know the truth and get beyond all the media nonsense that they were putting out.
And do you know if that letter was then spread out to your family and friends so they knew what happened?
Yes, it was. In fact, it was published on justicefordunn.com.
Now, Mr. Guy kept talking about this hour and a half, 2 hours with law enforcement that day with the Jacksonville homicide detectives. You ever been questioned by police for murder?
Never.
You ever been accused of murder?
Never.
Objection, Your Honor. Improper.
Sustained.
Let me ask you this. Are you trained in any type of interrogation or debate?
No.
Do you recall Detective Musser, as Mr. Guy read from your statement about the video? Do you recall Mr. Guy asking you statements about the video?
Yes.
Do you remember him going back and forth about what detective said to you and what you said?
Yes, I do.
Did Detective Musser tell you that people in Jacksonville will get killed for asking to lower the radio?
Actually, he said people in Jacksonville will kill you if you ask them to turn the radio down.
And Detective Oliver tell you, hey, if we found a shotgun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you if we found a BB gun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you if we found any gun, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Did he even tell you if we found a water gun that was painted black, that would be different?
Yes, he did.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the plaza for a gun?
I was.
Were you under the assumption that they actually searched the bushes for a gun?
I was.
Were you actually under the assumption that they checked dumpsters that night for a gun?
I was.
Did they ever convey to you in your interrogation that nothing was ever checked in the area when they told you, we never found a gun?
They did not.
And that's when they start asking you about, is it possible it was something else?
Judge, objection,
Correct.
please.
Sustained.
Do you recall them making a comment about possibilities of other weapons?
Yes, they said it was impossible.
And when did they make that comment about, is it possible it was something else?
When I told them I saw a weapon.
Now, Mr. Guy also talked about it was 4 teenage boys and the weight and size of Jordan Davis. Did you find out the other day he's almost 6 feet tall?
I did.
Was he fully dressed?
He was.
Did he speak to you like a child?
He did not.
Did he act like a child?
He did not.
Did he threaten your life like a child?
No, he did not. He threatened my life like a man.
And how many men were in that car when your life was threatened?
4?
How many were with you?
Nobody, just me.
Do you have any training in boxing?
I do not.
Do you have any training in MMA fighting or self-defense?
No, I do not.
Are you a bodybuilder?
No.
Do you even weightlift?
No.
So even with your size, it would have been 4 on 1.
That's correct.
Now, Mr. Guy also talked about, did you fire a warning shot? Do you recall that?
I do.
When you fired the gun, did you believe a warning shot was going to make him go away?
I did not.
And Mr. Guy said he didn't pull the trigger and you didn't get shot. Do you recall those questions?
I do.
Were you going to wait to see if he was going to pull the trigger?
No, I was convinced he was going to. I wasn't going to wait for him to do it.
And with your experience, a shotgun has a much broader net of pellets than a single bullet.
Yes, shotgun is devastating.
And did you hear their forensic expert, Miss Pagan, testify that the minimum amount of pellets is 9 in a shotgun shell?
That's correct.
So 1 shotgun shell to 1 bullet would be 9 against 1.
I agree with that.
Now, Mr. Dunn, you have a concealed weapons permit.
Yes, I do.
How long have you had a concealed permit, approximately?
5 years?
Judge, I'm gonna object to this, just beyond the scope.
Well, that one's asked and answered. Go ahead, Mr. Stroller.
Even with your concealed weapons permit, you could have had that gun next to your leg.
Judge, same objection, beyond the scope.
Sustained.
How many steps away was that secured firearm?
I believe it was 3 steps.
And is that based on what you were trained in?
That and, just being safe.
And do you have the permit to allow you to keep it 1 step away?
I do.
Are you aware if firing a warning shot is illegal in Florida?
I am.
Objection as to relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Your Honor, if I may just briefly?
Sure.
We don't have to do a speaking objection. I would just ask that it was opened the door by cross. Yes, Your Honor.
Let's come around inside.
Yes, Your Honor.
nothing to, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Dunn, do you remember the questions Mr. Guy asked you about why you didn't call 911? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay. You started saying, looking back on it, it's irrational, correct?
I did.
Were you in a rational state of mind that evening?
No.
Were you in a rational state of mind when you found out Mr. Davis was dead?
No, I was not.
Were you in a rational state of mind talking to law enforcement the next day?
No, not really.
Were you in a rational state of mind when the police charged you with murder?
No, I was not.
Nothing further.
All right, Mr. Dunn, you can resume your seat. He can resume his seat.
I'm sorry?
He can resume his seat. Do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor, we would rest.
All right. Go ahead, Mr. Dunn. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the defense has now rested their case, so I need to take a moment or two and talk to the lawyers outside of your presence. So if you give me 15 minutes, I